Welcome to another 3 True Scary Stories from Reddit. Before we begin, I would like to say that the links to the stories will be in the description below if you want to read along with me. With that being said, let's begin. Number 1. I live in a small college town, just 20 minutes from my hometown. Most of my friends live in my hometown, so I go out there pretty frequently. Yesterday, I had plans with 2 people out in my hometown. We call it Town A. It's big enough to have 1 Walmart, a large mall, and a large hospital. It also has 1 university and 1 community college. Even though it's pretty big in my standards, there's only a few bad areas. As long as these streets are avoided, you're pretty safe. One friend had to be picked up from 40 minutes away from Town A. We finished up early and I dropped him off for work. When I got back into Town A, I had another hour to kill. I decided to go park and take a walk in the woods by the zoo. Driving there and back to my dorm would take about 40 minutes, and my friend would be ready in an hour. The woods are split by a river. One side of the river is pretty crowded. It has a dog park, a lot of houses, and is parallel to a busy street. I parked on the side that was opposite of this, so I could smoke a bowl without worry of being bothered. When I got to the park, I noticed there was only 1 other car in the gravel lot. It didn't look like anyone was in it. I sat in my car for about 10 minutes to listen to that one really long Avenged Sevenfold song. I got out of the car and started walking towards the woods with a cigarette in hand. I heard the other car door open to reveal a 40-year-old black man who looked homeless. His car was pretty messy, but I didn't think much of it. He asked me for a lighter. He had seen me with my cigarettes, so we knew I had one. I walked over to the car and handed him my lighter. As I got closer to him, I saw that something wasn't right. He had a look of desperation in his eyes, and watched me like I was prey. He thanked me, and I started to walk away, but he called me back. He asked where I was going. I lied and said I was going to the dog park, which looked pretty crowded. I lied and said that my dad was there with our pit bull. He could tell I was lying. He asked why I parked on the opposite side of the stream. I lied again and said that I was concerned about parking on the other side, and started to walk off again. He tried to get my attention again to say something else, but I walked off saying my dad would be really annoyed if I was late. After spending an hour in the zoo, I figured he had left. I came back to the parking lot and still saw his car without him in it. I sped walked to my car and got in. As I drove up to the entrance, I saw 2 heads barely peering over the dashboard. There was another adult man sitting in the back seat. That's when it hit me. It wasn't his car that was messy. There had been another human in the back seat, flattened out underneath the sheet and some trash. I sped off and drove to my friend's house, who was expecting me soon anyway. As I was driving away, I realized what was going on. The 2 men were waiting in their car for someone to go on the trail, or for someone to get close enough to the car to snatch into the back seat. I'm not sure what would have happened to me if I'd gone into the woods or stayed to talk. I'm sure the only reason that I got away is because I said someone was waiting for me. So, creepy men waiting on the trail. Let's not meet again. Number 2. Okay, so this only happened about an hour ago, and I'm still shaking. Before I tell you what happened, I'll give you a bit of detail and background. I live in Sydney, Australia, in a pretty dodgy neighborhood. so I'm quite used to creepy and not so very nice people, but this experience is the worst I've ever had. My house backs onto a park with quite a few trees, but they are so spaced out it's not like bushland. It's a nice park with a walkway, and all the houses in my street line up against it, making a sort of long wall of house backyard fences, if that makes sense. Because of this, I have a very small backyard. Anyway, on with the story. I was just about to go to bed, and had finished locking my front door and the windows. All I had to do was lock the back door, but before I did, I decided to open it and have a look outside, just to check the weather and see if my two cats were out there laying around. I was looking around when a faint flicker of light from one of the treetops caught my eye. It was weird considering there are no lights in the park, and I got worried there might be a fire starting. I decided to take a closer look, but as soon as I stepped outside, the now clearly visible flame vanished. The flame had come from the tree closest to my back fence, only a few feet away, so it was possible to see shapes and movements, even in the darkness. I was certain it was from a lighter. Someone had climbed up the tree and was either lighting a smoke or trying to start a fire. This scared the living shit out of me, because if he was just lighting a cigarette, that meant he was spying on all the houses, and had just seen me in my pajamas. And if he was starting a fire, the whole park could go up in flames, along with the houses too. Australia in the summer can be very dangerous, and bushfires damage homes, wildlife, and nature, and kill many people. I ran inside and slammed the door. My father then yelled at me for making such a loud noise and waking him up. I apologized, but didn't tell him what was going on, just in case I was being overly paranoid. I do have severe anxiety. I continued to stand with the back door shut and locked, but watched to see what the man was doing. I saw the lighter once more, and the end of a cigarette light up. He was smoking. I could now see my cat was staring at him, and her fur was all puffed up, and after reading posts like this, I didn't want him to hurt her, along with the fact that in my area, many animals and humans are killed and harmed by people whacked out on drugs, in gangs, or just stupid teens trying to have fun and hurting innocent animals. So I decided to go outside and get her. I ran out and picked up my cat. As I was almost inside, I turned to see what the man was doing. I could see the whites of his eyes. He was staring right at me. I froze for a moment, and then started to go back into the house, quickly and quietly. But before I can even get my body halfway through the door, the man lunged out of the tree and onto my back fence. He threw the cigarette at my other cat, who had now climbed out of the flower pot and was hissing. He missed, and my cat is fine. I ran inside and locked the door. The man proceeded to jump into my backyard and bolt for my cat. Luckily, my cat ran through the cat door, and my other cat was still in my arms. I put a large heavy box in front of the cat door to block it. I had once again woken up my dad by being so noisy. He came out yelling at me and telling me to go to my fucking room and shut up, as he had to go to work early in the morning. I softly apologized, as all I could do was manage a small squeak from being so scared, and I didn't want to piss him off further. I told him to go look out the back door, but not to open it. He looked at me like I was insane, probably thinking that there was some kind of small rodent outside that had frightened me, or attacked the cats. He made an annoyed groan and went to have a look. As soon as he looked outside, he froze. Without looking at me, he told me to call the police and see if I can get my neighbors, one being a cop and the other being a terrifyingly large Fijian man who could kill someone with his bare hands. I called the cops while sprinting in my neighbor's house and telling them what was happening. When I came back, my dad was yelling at the guy and telling him to get the fuck out of there before the cops came, or my dad decides to kill him himself. Now, just some quick info. My dad is a scary man. Tall, muscular, and ex-army. Nobody fucks with him. But this guy. This insane man just stared at him and slowly pulled a knife from his boot and started cutting my screen door, making a hole to try to get through. My screen door has bars on it, and the man could not fit through them. Yet there he was, half his body through the hole, trapped by the bars, trying to open the sliding glass door, yelling at my father about how he'd never see me again, and the awful things he and his friends would do to me. By this point, one of my neighbors, the cop, had gone into the park with his large German Shepherd and taser, and was planning on jumping over my fence and ambushing the guy. Just as he was about to do this, the police I called for arrived and barged past my father, myself, and my other neighbor, the large Fijian man. They then proceeded to tell the man to step away from the door and drop his knife. The man turned away and tried to bolt, but before he could, my neighbor's dog tackled him to the ground and bit him, allowing the cops to arrest the guy. They put him into the car, but he just kept staring at me the whole time, never taking his eyes off of me. I never felt so violated and vulnerable. They took our statements, and that's all that has happened. He's in police custody, and we're waiting to see what will happen next. My dad told me that when he looked outside the first time, he saw the man trying to look through our windows with his pants on the ground. He could have possibly been taking a whiz, or well, the other obvious thing. I was, and still am, very shaken up by this event, and have gone to stay with my aunt for the night, so I don't have to be in this house. So, creepy tree-climbing maniac, I hope we never, ever meet again. Number 3. When I was 18 years old, I worked as a lifeguard in Toronto, Canada. I had been doing this job for 2 years and worked at a lot of different pools. I had picked up this shift that was every Friday night, 6:30 to 10 p.m. during the winter season. Also known as the loser shift for people who don't have anything fun to do on Friday nights. In early December, I was the only one left in the pool building on my Friday shift at about 10:30 p.m. The pool building is attached to a main community center that has an ice rink and gym in it, but the pool building has a completely different entrance and parking lot than the community center. Anyway, I was about to lock up and drop my key off at the main building when I saw a girl waiting outside in the parking lot. She was about 10 years old, and I recognized her as one of the people who came for a free swim during my shift. I was just about to ask her if she wanted to come wait inside, because it was freezing outside, when the phone rang. I went back into the staff office to answer the call, and after I was done, the girl was gone. I assumed her parents had come to pick her up, or something logical. I then grabbed my stuff, turned the lights off, and locked the door to drop the key off and then walk home. I was walking across the parking lot for about 15 meters when I heard a faint muffled scream. I turned around quickly and saw a truck idling at the far end of the parking lot. It was kind of far away, and I had to squint my eyes to see what was going on. To my horror, I realized the man was bent over and struggling to get something into his trunk. I moved a little closer towards the trunk and saw that the man was wearing all black and had a scarf covering half his face. Then I noticed a girl's arm trying to hold the trunk open while the man was trying to shut it. She had her legs sticking out of the trunk too, kicking and also holding the trunk door open. I recognized her as the girl that was waiting outside before. I noticed her bright pink winter jacket. 2 seconds after I realized what was going on, I started panicking and looking for my phone in my bag. The parking lot was completely empty other than that one truck. It was dimly lit and the ground was very icy. I looked up once I found my phone at the bottom of my bag. The man stopped struggling to get the girl into the trunk and turned to face me. As quickly as possible, I turned around and started running back towards the pool door. I looked over my shoulder while I was cautiously running, trying not to slip on the ice. He was charging towards me. I was about 10 meters away from the door, and he had gotten significantly closer to me. I started screaming, but it was hard to scream while running. I got to the door and struggled to get my keys out of my coat pocket. He was about 5 meters away when I unlocked the door and shut it behind me, then locked it. I called the cops on my phone and told the operator what was happening, and she said the police were on their way. It was terrifying to watch the man come right up to the door and try to open it, looking at me through the glass window at the top of the door. He banged on it and was yelling at me. I couldn't really hear what he was saying though. I then gave him the finger, and I think he realized that I was on the phone, and then he took off. It was horrifying to be behind the building and not be able to see what was going on with the trunk and the girl. I heard sirens pull into the parking lot about 5 long minutes after he left. I then felt that it was safe to open the door and walk outside. When I got outside, the girl was running toward the police cars, and the truck was nowhere in sight. Turns out he lured her to his truck, not really sure how, and then tried to abduct her. Once he stopped banging on the pool door, he ran back to his car, threw the girl out of the trunk, then sped out of the parking lot, never to be seen again. I gave the police my statement, and as far as I know, he was never caught. Thank you for listening to another 3 true scary stories from Reddit. Remember, if you like this video, make sure to leave a thumbs up and also subscribe for future content. Until next time everybody, have a great night, and as always, stay safe.